Are all cows created equal? On today's menu, the semi-wild Maramane of Tuscany.
A buttero is a cowboy. That is the Tuscan cowboy.
Freshly made Moroccan Beldi butter.
The cows get to stay inside the house, and that's to show the love that these people have for their animals.
Chocolate milk from the American heartland.
When I first tasted his chocolate milk, it was just absolutely wonderful. It's that feeling of everything's all right.
A boutique butcher specializing in grass-fed beef.
We are what we eat and animals are what they eat. So if they're eating something that's not good for them, their fat is not good for us.
Cows have always been at the top of the triangle. The animals that require the most attention, the animal whose meat is the most prized, the animal whose loss is most felt when one leaves the farm. My name's Lori Demori. I'm a journalist and food writer. We are on the Tistarelli family farm called Aia della Colonna, where Maramane cows are raised the way they always have been.
Raised semi-wild Maramane cows are native to southwest Tuscany, an area known as the Italian Wild West. This rare breed roams free over the rugged landscape, herded by cowboys on horseback. The full-flavored meat of the Maramane inspires a local specialty, bollito.
Non si sa, non viene il veterinario.
No, sul brado fa tutta natura.
So what we're learning is that it's a time of the year when the bull is in with the cows, which is why we can't get too close. The hope is that 90% of the females will be bearing calves next spring. The bull will point him out in a minute. Dov'è il toro?
Ora, in questo momento è quello che va in giù.
Roberto is the buttero, doing a lot of his work on horse in the traditional Maremman fashion. A buttero is a cowboy. That is the Tuscan cowboy. Bellissimo sei. Tutto insieme 300?
No, 240 tutti insieme.
So the farm works 240 hectares of land, and some of it's used for grazing and some of it is used to raise crops. Maramane cows are recognizable by their beautiful curved horns and by the fact that they live semi-wild, outdoors, feeding on wild grasses, on hay, and because of that their meat is flavorful and quite unlike anything you find in a shop.
Sempre una passione da piccolino gli animali, in genere.
Since he was a child, he's always had a passion for the animals and raising them more than anything else.
Non ancora, è anche il benessere.
Okay, well,
È già un 80% in più.
He says 80% of the goodness of these animals comes from the fact that they live well. And an animal that lives well and lives happily is going to also be a better tasting animal. Very few farmers still raise the legendary Maremman cows. The Tistarelli is one of the few families that does. It's a family affair. Mother Livia and daughter Roberta take care of the agriturismo and basically transform the products of the farm into food for guests and into meat that's sold.
Bene, lei?
Cosa sta facendo?
Bollito.
This is Roberto's mother, Livia, and she's going to show us how to make a bollito. In goes the meat,
Sì.
and it's going to be simmered slowly.
Pomodoro.
2 tomatoes, some basil. So everything's going in whole.
Sedano.
Because the vegetables aren't being put in to eat, they're putting in to give their flavor to the broth. That's it. So that'll simmer for 2 hours.
E la maionese e le patate lesse.
Traditionally, bollito's eaten with 3 things. Salsa verde, which is green sauce, homemade mayonnaise, and potatoes. Okay. Oh, it smells meaty and delicious. Che buon odore, eh?
Sì.
don't even really need a knife. It's so soft. Here we go. Tender as butter. Flavorful but not overly assertive. Delicious. I'm wondering what it's like to live so closely with these animals and also sit down to the table and eat them. So what there is not so much a tie as a respect, and Roberta says the respect comes from the fact that those animals keep them alive, so you better have respect for them. Delicious. Buono, complimenti.
Berbers are the indigenous people in Morocco, and they have been here for at least 3 millennia, even before the coming of Muslims. And in the beginning, they used to live all over Morocco, but when Islam came, they actually resisted and fled to the mountains, and that's where most of them still live today. Cows are very important in the life of these Berber people here, and each family must have at least 1 or 2 cows to make sure that they can get milk every day. My name is Hamza Bouzouzou, and we are now in a Berber village outside the city of Essaouira.
118 miles southwest of Marrakesh, Berbers follow a centuries-old method for making beldi butter. Maintaining their own unique language and traditions, Berbers have influenced Morocco's cuisine for millennia.
We are in a Berber house where a big Berber family lives, and as you see, there's a square courtyard with many rooms, and one of the rooms is actually a stable. So the cows get to stay inside the house, and that's to show the love that these people have for their animals, because it's just like they are from the family. The name that this family has for the cow is Nasira, which means glorious. Fatima is actually using the milk to make beldi butter, which is traditional butter. She's going to actually filter the milk using this thin fabric. She's going to leave it in the pot to sit for about 24 hours before she can actually churn it to make butter and buttermilk. This is the shekwa, which is actually the goat skin that they use for churning the milk. And it's made from a goat. It looks like a Scottish bagpipe. Normally when the sack is actually stored and not used, they would put some thyme leaves in it just to protect or to give it a good flavor. The first thing she does is to take the thyme leaves out, and then they pour the milk inside it. Now you see that the milk itself has curdled, and it's ready to be churned. Now she's breathing inside the goat skin just to inflate it, and so that there is space for the milk to be churned inside. They start churning until the butter is separated from the buttermilk. The churning will actually take between 1 hour to 1 hour and a half, depending on how much milk is in the goat skin. And now we are ready to see what the final product looks like. And as you see, it's very white because it's fresh. Shukran. Barakallahu feek. This tastes just like cream cheese, but it's not sour. But you can actually have an aftertaste of thyme. So now, just from the milk, we have 2 products, butter and buttermilk. The fresh butter has to be used immediately after being extracted. This is Amina, the cook of the family, and she's going to prepare us some couscous now. And couscous is one of the typical Moroccan dishes. Now, butter is actually an essential ingredient in the making of couscous. That's what makes the grains become larger in size and softer. That's when the flavor really gets to the couscous. Now she's adding the iced sugar. That's because it's a sweetened couscous. It's a wonderful taste. You have the taste of the butter on the couscous, you have the sweetness of the sugar, and when you add buttermilk to that, it's a wonderful taste. It's just a very delicious. بارك الله فيك.
I've always enjoyed cows. I grew up on a farm. My dad used to milk cows, and my granddad milked cows. Let's go. Come on, let's get up. They're pleasant to be around. You can talk to them and they don't respond back, you know, and you can unload your troubles against them and they don't care. I'm Willis Schrock. We have a dairy farm in Russellville, Kentucky.
Making milk can be a delicate process. At JD Country Milk, Willis Schrock believes in producing milk the old-fashioned way, unhomogenized. That means that the cream collects at the top instead of being mixed into the milk. Just imagine how delicious that makes the specialty of the house, chocolate milk. Although the stuff of childhood dreams, its shelf life left a little something to be desired. So Willis turned to microbiologist and chocolate milk fan Melissa Newman for a little help.
We're considered a small dairy. Currently we're only milking 20 cows. Go ahead and start it and we'll put it on. We milk the cows twice a day, 12-hour intervals as much as possible. When God created the animal, they ate grass. I think that makes a wholesome milk, better tasting milk. It's the way it was meant to be. We do bottle our own milk in half-gallon glass, whole milk and chocolate milk. Our chocolate milk is special in the sense that we use whole milk. We do not homogenize, and our cocoa is made with all real ingredients. But also our cocoa is a density of 15, where most commercial chocolates are 10.
When I first tasted his chocolate milk, it was just absolutely wonderful. It tasted like something that I had as a child. It's that feeling of everything's all right.
When we first started making chocolate milk, we couldn't get shelf life to stabilize. We expected it to last 13 plus days. We'd have jugs that would last 7 days and some 12 days. Some would spoil early and some would spoil late. And it never made any logical sense as to why. We milk it into the barn tank, farm tank. I had called University of Kentucky to come and identify my problem and tell me how to fix it. Right. We make our chocolate in the vats.
Okay.
And we would add the cocoa, stir it, and add the sugar and stir it, and then raise it to the 152 degrees and leave it there for 30 minutes.
So you were doing everything in the
Everything was done in the vat pasteurizer, thinking that's the safest place to do it.
My guess is that you're probably introducing some microorganism in one of the ingredients, the sugar or cocoa, and that it's surviving your pasteurization step and it's what's coming out and spoiling. So what we're going to do is we'll take samples of your chocolate milk back to the laboratory. When we originally were looking to solve this, we were picking these bacteria out. We were looking at what temperatures would kill the bacteria. We were looking at how the bacteria was surviving. We were doing all these things that were very scientific and fancy. But as it turns out, cocoa powder will clump when you put it in milk. And probably most of us have experienced it when we've put cocoa powder into white milk at home. It just floats. And when it would go through the pasteurization, what was actually happening is that the balls of cocoa were protecting the bacteria that were inside. And then the bacteria would not get killed during the pasteurization step. So our recommendation was to make sure that the cocoa powder was completely in solution, that all the little balls are broken up before it goes to pasteurization. And his shelf life should be more similar to what he sees with his white milk.
If you notice, you see virtually no...
Oh, it looks good.
You see virtually no floaties.
Yeah, I don't see any floaties, do you? It looks good.
I had called consultants to come and identify my problem and tell me how to fix it. And when Melissa came and offered to do it, that's the kind of help I like. I think she solved the problem.
When you come here and you visit and you see what kind of quality and you see that the family's involved with it and that this is something that they have a lot of pride in, then it just makes sense to help them succeed. Being a fan of chocolate milk just made it a more important job. Cheers. Cheers.
Beef is the American meat.
Americans like beef.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing more American than a hamburger or a steak on a grill. This is really what we are. This is the American food. I'm Jessica Applestone, and
Joshua Applestone.
we own Fleischer's Grass-Fed and Organic Meats, and we're located in Kingston, New York, and Rhinebeck, New York.
Think great beef means marbled fat and prime cuts? Think again. Originally trained as a chef, Joshua Applestone believes in bringing customers beef raised the old-fashioned way, pasture-raised and grass-fed. In upstate New York, he and his wife Jessica run Fleischer's, where you will experience the bovine rhapsody of your grandparents. Until you've tried it, you may find you've never truly tasted beef at all.
Colin can lift up a VW. Wait, we want me to move the scale over here? Why don't you hang on a second, Cudso?
Before World War II, all animals were raised on either 100% grass or grass-fed grain finished, which is what we do here, both of those.
159.7.
After World War II, because of economic reasons, people started raising their animals almost fully on grain, and that's when the big shift started. Animals get much fatter, much faster on grain.
Faster to market.
Yeah, and so they were able to bring their steer into market probably 6 to 8 months faster.
Almost a year sometimes.
Sometimes a year, and it was a significant difference. When an animal whose primary source of protein changes from grass to grain, it's not so good for them because they are ruminant animals and they can't tolerate grain. What happens is an animal is put on antibiotics immediately and also steroids. So now 95%, probably more, 98% of the American steer are raised in this way. That system to us is ruining how Americans eat. It's bad for the health of the animals, it's bad for the health of the environment, it's bad for people's health, and made that conscious decision that this is not what we're going to do, and it's not what we're going to sell, and it's not what we're going to promote. If you ask older people, like my dad, for example, who's in his 80s, he remembers what actual beef tasted like because that's what he grew up with. You didn't have to go to a boutique butcher to get it. That's what everyone ate.
It becomes earthy, it becomes beefy.
It just tastes like, you know, what meat should taste like.
You can always tell that you're getting 100% grass-fed because of the color of the fat.
See how yellow the fat is here?
The minute an animal starts ingesting grain of any type, the fat becomes white. This is a conventionally raised animal. Everything that we don't believe in is what's represented in this steak.
Can you please take this garbage and put it somewhere else? Thank you.
So it's supposedly higher quality piece of meat. You've got ribbons of fat, not great for you. We are what we eat and animals are what they eat. So if they're eating something that's not good for them, their fat is not good for us. Okay, so this is 100% grass-fed, very, very little intramuscular marbleization. This fat has a high amount of omega-3, 6s, and 9s and high amount of CLAs. Those are good cancer-fighting fats.
Boop. With sound effects and everything. Right. So we're going to be doing the same thing to both steaks. This is the conventional, and this is our 100% grass-fed. Very nice.
Colin, this is Kendra. She's going to be apprenticing with us.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Kendra.
She's going to be trying the difference between conventionally raised steak and 100% grass-fed steak. This is the conventional. This is the grass-fed.
Wow. That hits you right away. The conventional beef, it's a nice piece of steak, but most of the flavor is coming from the crust, you know, with the butter and the salt and all the nice things. This, it just hit my palate right away.
It's kind of like a fine wine. The earthiness on the tongue that just blossoms and blooms.
I'm tasting this in more areas of my mouth than I did the other. Like it immediately hits the, you know, the front of my tongue, and just with this kind of, for lack of a better word, really fresh.
All of our employees go through this once they taste our meat, and the look on their face was if they had just tried beef for the very first time. It would never fail to amaze them, and it never failed to amaze me.
15 minutes.
The way that we judge meat in this country is by fat content. That's what prime and choice mean. Hey, how are you? What can I get for you?
A lot of people that come in really are surprised. They're looking for the really high-end, prime meaning very fatty.
And they think it needs to be marbled with fat to provide a great taste. There's no other possibility for an animal to gain that kind of weight unless you feed it grain. This is 100% grass-fed beef. I don't know if you've done that before. We have the 3 different types of customers. We have customers that are here because of philosophy. We have customers who are here because of health reasons. And then we have customers who come here because our meat tastes better. That's a lot of food. How about 2 of these and 1 of these? We use every part of the animal.
A nose-to-tail philosophy.
Right.
We break down the leg, loin, arm chuck, which we get brisket, chuck eye, and a nice amount of ground meat.
There's a lot of cuts that we do that nobody else does. It's probably something that, existed in the past, but not now. This is something called the Terrace Major. It's one of the leanest cuts around. You'll never see this cut in the supermarket.
And we call it here at Fleischer's a faux filet. We usually wrap it in our own bacon. We sell little nuggets of love, and it's unbelievably tender.
We must have this phone call at least 3 times a week, and they'll say, can we get 50 pounds of hanger steak a week? And we'll say, do you realize that there's 1 hanger steak per animal? That's it.
3/4 of a pound per animal.
That's it, okay? Whatever you're talking about.
When you see hanger steak on the menu,
right,
they're not
it's not
sustainable.
That means that you're killing 50 animals a week just for that hanger steak. That's a pretty healthy steak. I would say 3 people could almost eat that. We go through 4 animals a week here. You have to balance that out. Eat every part of the animal. We're all about not only a nose-to-tail philosophy here, we're about nose-to-tail eating.